Hello there, and welcome to the Fish Tank Barn. Today I'd like to take you on a trip to one of my local fish club meetings for the Motor City Aquarium Society. I thought you would all have some interest in learning a bit about aquascaping from today's speaker, who is Ben Van Dither from Watercolors Aquarium Gallery in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So let's go ahead, dive in, and get started with the meeting. So before we get to the main speaker, I want to show you some other aspects of the meeting. Here we're looking at the Breeders' Award and Horticulture Award submissions. I had a pretty good month and was able to bring in 4 species for BAP points, including the Crocodile audax, Jardinus falcatus, Colombian ram's horn snails, and Neolamprologus multifasciatus. I also brought in some plants as well for the HAP program. As you can see, the club had a pretty good number of HAP submissions for this month. It was actually pretty impressive. I'd also like to show you the raffle briefly. Some months are better than others, but there's always something interesting that always shows up. Now on to the mini auction, where there were some live bears, Cory cats, and a wide variety of plants that you could bid on. The club also has a bull show, and this month's theme was angelfish, goldfish, and killifish. I entered the Epiplates Deghetti that you'll see towards the end, but I thought all the angelfish were quite nice. Now we get to the fun part and get to watch Ben scape the tank. I took snippets of his presentation as he set the tank up. At the end of the meeting, the club is going to sell raffle tickets to auction the tank off to one lucky winner.
So today what I'm going to talk about is simple aquascaping. If you are here hoping that this is going to be the talk that's going to give you the tools to go win one of the big aquascaping contests, you're in the wrong place. This is going to be way more about, you've got this tank. It's not my breeding tank. It's not my, I want to make sure I'm keeping this fish tank, but I want this showpiece. What are some of those simple things that can take an aquarium from this glass box that keeps things alive in to a living, breathing work of art? This is, by the way, from that one service company. Can you see the rocks in this tank? Can you see that at all? There's 10 different kinds of rocks, and they're all lined up in all of these neat little rows, and it presents in this super unnatural, hard to follow kind of way, right? So when you see a tank like that, it's very clean, the equipment's all hidden, it's well built into the wall, but the comparison of those two tanks is night and day, and it's not just because of the plants, it's because of that, it's because of that composition. So it's the right ingredients that make a composition. It's hardscape, it's livestock, and it's plants. So we're talking about hardscape, we're talking about rocks and driftwood, essentially, or anything that's not going to grow in the aquarium. So there are some rules to follow when we're talking about hardscape. That one you can see a little bit better. This is another one from that service company, where there's 5 different kinds of rocks in the tank, okay? And then this one over here, one kind of rock. Do we need the microphone? Yeah. Thank you. How's that? Is that better? Ooh, there's an echo now. All right, so here, it's just one kind of rock. 10 different kinds of rocks. So one of those things to say, okay, when I'm at the aquarium store, and I'm trying to figure out where do I start? What's the first thing? I like this rock, and I like this rock, and I like this rock. There's nothing wrong with liking those 3 different rocks. If your goal is a composition, don't put all of those rocks in the same tank. Make sure all of those rocks are the same kind of rock, right? If you like a piece of serious stone, buy only serious stone for that tank. The golden ratio, there's some discrepancy as to exactly where that golden ratio came from. Either the Greeks or the Egyptians, thousands of years ago, came up with this ratio that the human eye perceives as aesthetically pleasing, right? An 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, a 3 by 11 note card, they're based on that ratio. Standard 20 high, and I believe, I didn't do the measurements, but this is most likely based on that ratio. That ratio is a 5/8. A lot of places on land would talk about the 1/3, 2/3 rule, or the rule of thirds. That's kind of cheating, but it's a little way of simplifying what that 5/8 rule. If you want to get really specific, you would measure out your aquarium, you would divide it by 8, and your focal point, the main thing, would be that this is my favorite beautiful piece of driftwood, right? Or this is my favorite, biggest, most beautiful plant. A focal point of that aquarium, put it at that 5/8 mark. Okay? Now, just as an example, if I take that and I put that right in the middle, it doesn't look like anything special, but as soon as you move that over the 5/8, all of a sudden it starts to have an appeal to it. To take that analogy one step further, tonight, tomorrow, next time you're watching TV, when you either watching the news, let's go with the conversation analogy, right? If you're watching a TV show and the camera's going back and forth between two people having a conversation, right? And it's first starting out at one person and then it's going to the other person. Start noticing where the eyes are when that's being filmed. They're going to be at that 5/8 point almost every time. Purpose. What purpose? And I asked him afterwards, I didn't quite know what he meant. And what he meant was a purpose, right? Don't say, there's a rock, put it in the tank. Put it in the tank with a purpose. If you can't find a purpose for that rock, it doesn't belong in the aquarium. So everything that goes into your tank, you should be putting in there with a purpose, right? This rock here is my foundation stone. I'm putting it approximately at that 5/8 mark. That's going to be, the purpose of that rock is going to be the core, the foundation for the rest of the aquascape. Also, it's going to hold up this leachy driftwood. That can be a purpose for a rock in a tank. It can simply hold up a piece of wood. But everything that goes in the tank should go with a purpose. I like this rock, it's pretty, put it in the tank. It's not really a purpose. That can go in another tank. Or if you can say, I like this rock, it's pretty, I want it in my tank. What purpose can it serve? If you can answer that question, boom, there's your purpose right there. Everything that goes in the tank should go in with a purpose. So what I'm doing with these rocks now is I'm going to try and balance escape, right? And if you'll notice, approximately where is that path ending up? Right? Again, that's right at that 5/8 mark. I'm going to take it over. So, these rocks are going to be to start to define my border. I'm going to do what's called a divided substrate with this tank. So, divided substrate. I'm going to start with the soil. Remember, when we're doing a divided substrate, we're using a brown dirt and we're using a pretty colored sand. The brown dirt is all going to be covered with plants. The pretty colored sand is going to be visible. If the brown dirt gets in the sand, the sand doesn't look as good. If the sand gets in the dirt, it really doesn't matter. So that's why I'm going to start with the dirt. Dirt. The aquarium substrate. So this is aqua soil is what it's called. Some techniques out there for keeping the substrate divided. And I'm just kind of watching how it's going in. I'm deciding I'm going to use some of those techniques.
You put your substrate around your decorations instead of setting your decorations on something.
Yes.
What is the benefit?
So a couple of things. The biggest one, if I have any fish that big, it's not going to move. But eventually, over time, and specifically the rocks, are going to slowly settle into that substrate until they get to a weird surface. So the main reason that I'm doing it that way is because I want my hardscape to stay put. I want everything stable to do that. So I'm using these pieces of cardboard to help define my borders a little bit. So this is Hydrophilic Bosa, which is a stem plant. Stem plant means it's got one uniform stem in the middle with big frond, with leaves that grow in a uniform way off of that stem. Right, so here is Wigia, also a stem plant. Right, so we've got one uniform stem with leaves growing off of that stem. All of the stem plants, if it gets too tall, you trim the tall part and you replant it and it grows another plant. All of the stem plants do that. So that can be a big money saver. That can be a way for auction, like every month before your auction, trim your plants and bring it in and sell it. I use the tweezers when I'm planting. I'm going to do this background kind of in a mix of the Wigia. I want those in the corners. And again, this side I'm going to do heavier than this side, roughly a 5/8 ratio. So again, I tucked that one in there. I did not bury that knife. I don't have quite enough grips here to really get that border that I was hoping for, but we're still looking at
What is that first stem plant you mentioned again?
that. Is Hygrophilia corymbosa. And I believe it's a variation of gustifolia. There's a wide leaf and a narrow leaf version. This is the narrow leaf version.
So here's the final results, an absolutely awesome looking tank. Unfortunately, I didn't win the raffle for the tank, but I still had a good time at the meeting. I also want to thank Ben and Watercolors for donating the tank to the club and also doing the aquascaping presentation. I absolutely enjoyed it. I hope you found the talk informative, and I'll go ahead here at the end and put a link to my tour of the Watercolors fish store that I did a couple years ago. It's an absolutely impressive store. So with that, thank you for watching, stay safe, stay fishy, and I'll catch you on the next video.